Hi everyone, welcome to this masterclass. This masterclass is going to be about fear of making mistakes. So you're going to relate to this masterclass where if one of your biggest fear has been what if I make a mistake, what if I get it wrong, and you get thoughts, around these things. Whenever you set your mind to do something new or there's just desire in you to do something that you haven't done before and you know that you are not excellent at doing it, and in that time these thoughts start coming up to you that what if I make a mistake, what if I get it wrong, and ultimately these thoughts stop you or convince you from not doing it. So you're going to relate to this masterclass if you relate to having fear of making mistakes. Okay, so before I start with the masterclass, I'll just take you through the topics that we're going to cover very briefly. So first topic is going to be what does fear of making mistakes look like, and I'll also be sharing some real life examples where one is going to be my personal example how how fear of making mistakes looked into my life, how intense that fear was for me and how I overcame it, and plus more of it is going to be about how it impacted my life, how I realized that I have this mistake, I have this fear, and how I realized that I need to overcome it. And the second example is going to be from my clients, one of my clients, so who I think I had a session with him in September, and there in one of our sessions it just came out that he had the same fear, and how his fear impacted was impacting him. We're also going to cover that. And then in the second topic, we're going to cover what happens when you have a fear of making mistakes. So in the first topic that which was about what does fear of making mistakes look like, we are going to have a bigger picture. Like we are going to see when you have a fear of making mistakes, how does it impact your life. So we are going to see overall thing. But in the second topic, which is what happens when you have a fear of making mistakes, we are going to focus on your mind, like what happens when you have this mistake, like you've what happens like when you are in a situation where where one of your voice tells you that okay, I want to do this. In that moment, what happens, like what exactly what happens in your mind which ultimately convinces you to not do it, to give in to your fears. So what exactly happens in our mind? So we are going to talk about very personal here. So this is going to be about mostly about your inner voice, what happens, what internal chatter happens when you are actually in a situation where you want to do something, and that is when your fear of making mistakes show up. So, moving on to in the third topic, we are going to discuss now why do you have this fear in you. This is a very beautiful topic because a lot of times what happens is whether it is any other problem, even if it is other problems like confidence issues, if you have confidence issues or if you have low self-esteem, oftentimes what happens is we end up first thing is that we know that it is causing us struggle in life, we know we have a desire to improve it very badly. At the same time, what also starts happening is we start kind of blaming ourselves that why is it that I have it, because we can see that not everybody has not everybody is having it, not everybody has this fear or this low self-esteem, not everybody is struggling with what I am struggling. So a question that comes up is that why is it that I have it and others do not? So this is one question that I always like because it helps you understand yourself better, and I think acceptance is the first step towards healing or overcoming any fear. So yeah, this question is going to actually help you a lot. After that, we in the fourth topic we are going to discuss how it is impacting your life. So basically, when you have this fear in your life, how it is impacting your life. So here I'm going to I think share my overall that how it could be impacting your life personally. It is you who can see it clearer, how it is impacting, like how your fear is impacting you personally in your life, because I think it differs from person to person. In the fifth topic, we're going to discuss now why it is important to work over it. Here it's more of going to be my personal views, that like when I reflect onto my example, like my own case, like a few years ago, I'm going to discuss why, what made me choose to overcome this fear, and why did I take a decision to overcome that fear. And ultimately I believe that uh, decision is always something that we make ourselves. There is no statement or no reason, no such big enough reason that if I tell you, that will make you switch your decisions or make you agree or disagree. So I think decision always comes from our, I think decision is one it's kind of a power that you hold even if you do not want to do it, and even if I or somebody else gives their all to help you overcome this fear or to heal you, it is not going to work until you yourself have made a decision that I want to overcome it or I want to heal it. Because will is something that is, the number one prerequisite according to me. So I always say that whenever it comes to deciding whether I want to work on this part of me, or whether I want to overcome this fear, or whether I want to heal this thing in me, I think that the decision should always come from your system and your body. It should always be your own decision. So take your time, there is no rush, take your time and really see how it is impacting your life, how intense that fear is, or how like what how in what ways it is impacting you in life, and you decide, do I want to overcome it? If yes, then, because when you decide that I want to overcome it, it's like your body and your mind, it kind of makes them up for, you know for handling any challenges that come your way. And that's a fact, whenever you're healing yourself or overcoming a challenge, or overcoming a fear, challenges do come your way. And that is when the your will comes into the picture. And then in the next topic, that is sixth topic, we are going to cover how we can overcome our fear of making mistakes. How does the process look like? And then we are going to end this masterclass with a homework, or more than homework, it is going to be just 3 questions which you need to reflect, think over it, and then write down your answers. And more of these questions are going to help you, I think, understand your fear more, or it's actually going to kickstart your over this journey of overcoming your fear. It's the first part of it. When if you work with me, or how I see, healing process or overcoming any fear process look like is, first we do the belief work. We always do the belief work, wherein what we do is, generally we see what are the barriers which show up in our mind, what are the beliefs that we have, like, we believe in, we hold tightly onto, because most of the times it's these beliefs that do not let us take actions that we want to, or that is required to overcome or heal something. So first we always do this belief work, where we dig our fears, dig deeper into it, and do all of those works, because ultimately that is what helps us resolve our fears. And once we have done this, what happens is, you yourself will become strong enough, or you will become healed enough to take actions. So I never believe in taking forceful actions, that okay, you are fearful about something, and without looking into that fear I will tell you that no, take actions to do it despite feeling the fear. No, we do not do that, because I do not believe in forcing yourself into anything, because it wouldn't work. It would rather, I think, intensify your fear more. So what we do is, first we look into the fear, resolve it, and after, then you yourself will become, healed enough to follow it up with small actions. So that is what the entire process looks like. So when the homework that I'm going to give you after this masterclass is actually going to help you with the first part of this healing journey, which is actually, digging deeper into your fear. So it's going to be helpful. All right, so let us just start. And just so you know, I have my, PDF of the same masterclass opened on the desktop, so I'm referring to that, if you might wonder that where I'm looking. All right, so first topic was, what does fear of making mistakes look like? So see, fear of making mistake is nothing but, when you have this fear, what happens is that your mind is always focused on the negative outcomes. Your mind is always uh, giving you, is always taking your focus to the things that can go wrong. It's always throwing you questions like, what if I get it wrong? What if I'm unable to do this? So your mind is always focused on the negative outcomes. And one thing with such thoughts, or uh, such way of thinking, is that when you are focused on only negative outcomes, when you are worried that, okay, what if I get it wrong, what if I do make a mistake, what eventually ends up happening is, you end up manifesting the same outcome into your physical reality. So if you would notice that, if you're just speaking somewhere on a stage, giving a speech, and if you have this fear, and the moment, what will happen is, a thought will come up in your mind that, what if I make a mistake? What if the next word that I'm going to speak up, I just fumble it? What if I go blank all of a sudden? And then you will notice, most of the time what happens is, exactly that happens. Either you end up fumbling, and either you fumble your next word, or you go blank the next moment. And then what happens is, once this comes true, your belief that I'm bound to make mistake, I am more prone to make mistake no matter what I'm doing, it gets strengthened. So it's like fear, and then it shows up in your evidence, in your physical reality. You get an evidence that, yes, your belief is right, that is, your fear is right, that I make mistakes. and it's like an loop, it's like an endless loop. So that this loop is what we desire, or we aim to break here, through this masterclass. Okay, so this was here I defined, what does this fear of making mistakes look like. Also, something that I would like to share here is that so ultimately what happens is that when you have this mistake, uh, here what you end up doing is that, in real, making a mistake is not a big thing. So no matter what you're doing, chances that you will make a mistake is a truth. There is nobody who you can ever look and say that, this person can never make a mistake, or because no matter what you do, it's a fact that no matter what you're doing, there is always going to be a probability that you can do it wrong, or you can make a mistake. So that is the truth. But when we have this fear, what we end up doing is we make this, thing of making mistakes a life and death situation. For us, making a mistake is very wrong thing, is a very bad thing. It is something we despise. Like we have made it bigger than it is in real. We have made this, the fact that one can make a mistake, or that we can make a mistake, a much bigger thing than it is in real. So our relationship with making mistake is very bad, and there's a reason why it is bad, which we are going to discuss into that section, where we see that why is it that you have this fear. So we'll save this part for that section. And also, yeah, so what happens is that, when you have this fear, now when we have a very bad relationship with making mistakes, what happens is that we try our best to avoid this situation, because we know that because we have a fear that, making mistake is a very bad thing. And why? Because we have a memory that when I make a mistake, I am either criticized, I'm either judged, or I'm punished. So we have these, such negative beliefs around it, that making mistake is not a normal thing. It is a life and death situations. So when we have such belief, when we have this fear, what happens is we are going to, as a safety behavior, as a protection mechanism, we are going to avoid any such task or situation where we know that the chances are more that I can make a mistake. So as a result, I'm going to avoid new opportunities. I'm going to avoid meeting new people, or being, be putting myself out in front of new people, or doing something new in life, or learning something new, because I know when I do all of these things, chances are more that I can make a mistake, because these are new things. I'm showing up to new people. I'm exploring myself, and when I do these, chances are much more that I can make a mistake. But because I'm so fearful of making mistakes, because I have memories that when I make a mistake, the consequences are not in my favor, they are very dangerous for me. So what my body will do as a safety mechanism is that I will end up avoiding these situations, which means that I'm actually giving up on a lot of opportunities in life. So you see how it is working. Okay, so this is how, fear of making mistakes look like overall in the bigger picture of life. Now, some real life examples. So, personally speaking, I had a big fear of making mistakes, very big actually. So, I think back to the days. So, there would be a lot of events or activities happening. When I would be when I had this fear in my younger version. Okay, and one and I would have very strong desire that, okay, I want to be a part of this. I want to do this, because as a child, as when you're growing up, you obviously have a part of you who wants to explore yourself. You want to see your potential, because other kids are also going in, they're also participating for the first time, and they are doing all of these things, and in some of these things they fail, they do not perform good, but in some they do get success, and they do realize that, okay, I'm good at this. And that is how, your self confidence and self esteem uh, you know builds up, develops. And so I also used to have a very strong desire that I want to be a part of this activity. I want to do this event, and all of those things. But the fear would be so strong, the fear of that judgment, that people would judge me, what would people think of me, and all of these would be so strong that I would end up not being able to do any of those things that I wanted to. I would never participate in anything I wanted to, won't be able to, speak on stage. I would actually avoid doing those things. I would actually bring up excuses that, I can't do this because this, but internally I knew why I couldn't do this, and why I was avoiding it, because I had this very strong fear. Yes, so, and one thing I would like to I would also like to share is that, as I said, that when you have this fear, what ends up happening is that you are unable to take up chances on yourself and do new things in life. And ultimately what that does is, your self esteem or self confidence, all of it gets heavily affected, because uh, what happened with me was, every time, I would give in to my fears. Every time I would like let my desire be defeated by my fear, what would happen is, every time, my self-esteem would get hurt equally well. So that is how, my self-esteem was also being affected by this fear of making mistakes that I had. Another example is, this is from one of my client, who with in one of our sessions, it came out that this client, so they in their college, this placement thing was going on. So it was the time when placement companies would visit, and there would conferences would happen, and all of them. And this client had was very, academic, they were very good in academics. They had a history of a lot of achievements, a lot of achievements, but they had a very strong rule in their life that one should not make any mistake. It is wrong to make mistake, and all of these. So for in their dictionary, making mistake was a very bad thing. Now, the moment they had this belief, what eventually happened is that, now in their college, in these conferences, there were this client noticed that he wanted to there were views that he wanted to express, there were questions that he wanted to ask, in that conference, but he was unable to do that. So he was unable to, speak up publicly. Why? Because he had a fear that I would make a mistake. What if a question that I asked turns out to be stupid? What if the view or opinion that I have to express turns out to be not that intellectual? And when we went deeper, when I asked what will happen if that does happen, if your opinion does turn out to be not so well, does turn out, not impressive to the people present in the conference, what if your question does seem stupid to some people, what will happen then? And then this thing came up, this for this client, making mistake was a bad thing. One should not make a mistake. So you see, even when this client was very much capable, very much capable, was good in academics, and had everything that would that he would require to actually get a placement, the very his fear of making mistakes, was exactly what was becoming barrier between him and his, desired company, or getting placed at his desired position in a desired company. So that is how this fear impacts you. So I shared one example from my personal life, and this another one was from my client. So you can see how strong your fear is in your own life. You can just see how intense, what is the intensity of your fear, and how it is impacting you. And that is something that, that can be like, if you're unable to do it, when you are in a one-on-one session with me, that is something that we do, that when we go deeper, you can easily find out, okay, exactly this is the fear which is actually stopping me from doing this. Because a lot of times what happens is, you might not realize that you have this fear, but what you must be facing, or struggling with, is some surface level problems, like, I'm unable to speak up or do this. And when we go deeper, only then we realize that we have this fear. Like in the case of this client initially came up with this problem that I'm unable to speak up. I fear public, not fear public speaking, but I'm unable to do or put up my opinions. When we went deeper, only then it is that we realized that we were holding on to this very belief that I should not make a mistake, which was not helping this person here. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next topic, which is what happens when you have a fear of making mistakes. So as I mentioned, that here we are going to actually only focus on your internal chatter, what happens into here, your brain, when you have when this fear shows up. Okay, so okay, we'll start with okay. So let's say you are in a situation where, suppose you want to express your views, or there are new people around in the room, and you want to express your opinion or views, or do something new, do something that you haven't done before, or you know that you're not perfect at doing. Okay, but and the moment you're contemplating this idea that, should I do this, I want to, should I do this, a voice will come up. Okay, your mind will bring several limiting questions and statements into your way, which is ultimately going to convince you into uh, giving up on your desires and giving into your fears. So your fear will ultimately win, and you will end up not doing what you wanted to. So what happens is, in this moment, what will happen is, your mind will start throwing away questions like, what am I going to do? Will I be able to do it? What if I get it wrong? People will laugh at me. What will they think of me? Questions like these. And you're in the same in this at the same time, your inner voice will, like throw some statements like, I better not do it, or I will get it wrong, and these people will think low of me. Like, let's not go there, there will be a lot of people, what will they think of me? Or, I don't know it completely, I should not try doing it, or I will make a mistake. So you see how these, and these statements and questions, what they do exactly is they make you doubt yourself, doubt your capabilities, and ultimately you end up not doing what you wanted to do. Also, when you have this fear, the your inner voice, when your inner voice brings you all these questions and negative questions, limiting statements, what it actually does is it also impacts your self belief in a negative way. So when you have this fear, what ultimately is happening is that you do not trust yourself enough that when you do make a mistake, you will be able to handle the judgments, criticism, or punishment that will come your way. When in real, none of these things happen. Like as an adult, okay, even if you make a mistake, criticism, judgments can happen, but it's not that you're going to be punished heavily. But you have this fear that, okay, I will be either criticized, judged heavily, or punished, because you have a memory stored into your body, or I can say you've had such instances earlier in your life, which we are going to cover into the next section. But what happens here is that, when you have this fear, you have a very strong, you believe that, if I make a mistake, what happens after this? I won't be comfortable into that situation. It will be very unsafe for me. So you do not trust yourself enough to be okay or to be fine when you make a mistake. So what is that? Ultimately, it's like self belief. So you do not believe yourself enough that you will be able to handle if you do make a mistake. So when you have a fear of making mistakes, your self belief is also gets hampered. Okay. One thing I also want you to notice that, this fear of making mistakes is actually not real, in the sense that, uh, making mistake is something that is a truth, that is a fact. I also mentioned at the start of this masterclass. So no matter what we are doing, there is always going to be 50% chance that 50% chances that you can either succeed at it, or 50% chance is that either you can fail at it. So make the probability of you making mistake is always going to be there. So this fear is actually, it's like avoiding something that's true. It's like not being able to accept something that is an ultimate truth, rather making a big thing out of it. Not accepting that making mistakes is a normal thing, but we make it a big thing. So I want you to see that this fear is actually not real, rather it's something that we have made up in our mind. Okay. And so because one thing to also notice that, this fear, so it does not matter, how prepared or trained you are at something, anything, be it anything, whatever you are scared of, you're fearful of doing, because you fear that I will make a mistake when I do it. So it doesn't matter how prepared or trained you are at it, there will always be going to chance that you can mess up things, you can do it wrong. So when we are doing this master class, when we are talking of overcoming this fear, we are not, there is nothing in your physical reality that you can work upon or do more to actually diminish this fear, but it's rather going to be about working on that fear, working on being okay with making mistake. Obviously we are going to, when we actually come to the part of taking action to combat this fear, we are going to do everything, we are going to prepare well, we are going to practice, so that our chances of making mistake diminishes. But we are going to be very okay from the start that if even if I make a mistake, even if I fumble, I'm going to be okay with it. It's not a life or death situation for me. That is what we aim. Okay. Moving on to the next topic, which is, why do you have this fear in you? Now, as I said, this is one question which will actually help you understand yourself more when it comes to your fear of making mistakes, because oftentimes we have this question that why is it that I have this fear and others do not? Okay, so one thing I want you to know is that this fear, you were not born with this fear. This fear is not you. Like, this fear, your fear of making mistake does not define you. It is something that you developed over time, and just like how you developed it, it is very much possible for you to get rid of it. Just remember that because it took around 2 decades for you to develop this fear into you, do not come from a place that I will overcome this fear in 2 days or 2 weeks. Be easy on yourself, do not be unrealistic, and give yourself enough time to overcome this fear also, because if it took you, around 2 decades to develop this fear, it will take some time to overcome it, but it is very much possible. The only mistake we do is we try to get rid of such things, in one day. We expect things like, oh, I wish I could, I just didn't fear this much. Oh, I wish I didn't have this fear. and then we start using instant fixes and those tactics only to return to the same thing, only to realize that no, it's not working. And then what eventually happens is that we start losing hope that we can actually overcome this fear one day. But it is very much possible. The only mistake we do is we we start we like we put up unrealistic expectations from ourselves. All right, so as I was saying, yes, so this fear is not something that you were born with, it is something that you developed over time. Now, most of the times, what happens is, most of the times, what happens is, so when you have this fear, it is what happens when you were growing up, when you grow up, if you, so when you grow up, making mistakes was not normal for you. Not for you exactly, but for the environment you grew up in, for the people who surrounded you, there are a lot of chances that making mistake was not taken well then. Whenever you made a mistake, either you were punished, you were poked constantly for it, you were criticized. Yeah, you were criticized. So and when this happens frequently for you, okay, so when you are a child and you notice that, okay, whenever I'm making mistake, I'm being punished, I'm being criticized, and by who? By somebody who I trust, by somebody who I'm living with. It could be your parents or a guardian. And when it happens frequently, it could be a teacher also. So when it happens frequently, your mind notices that, whenever I'm doing this, it's not, the consequences are not in my favor, it makes me feel very unsafe and I do not feel comfortable then. So your mind makes it up that, okay, doing this is a very wrong thing, that is, making a mistake is a very wrong thing because the consequences are very wrong. So what I will do is, I will start avoiding doing this. What is, I will start avoiding doing anything wherein I could make a mistake, because I want to avoid consequence which is very unsafe for me. Now, uh, precisely this is how you develop this fear of making mistake. So your relationship of with your relationship with making mistake uh, is actually not on good terms, because when you grow up, uh, you were not, making mistake was not a normal thing for you. It was not taken well. Okay. And that is how slowly you learn. As you grow up, you learn that, the best thing I can do is not do something or avoid situations or opportunities where there are chances that I can make a mistake. Okay. And when you have this fear of making mistake, what happens is, in your world, making a mistake becomes a very big thing. It's not like a normal truth or a normal truth, but it becomes a very big thing. Like, you try your best to avoid making mistakes. One thing I wanted to notice is that, like, when you are thinking about, how I could have developed this fear right now, when I shared you that mostly it happens when you're growing up, either it could be your teacher, parents, guardian, or friends who actually, either poked you, criticized you, or judged you whenever you made a mistake. I want you to notice that it would be just one or two people, not everyone, but just one or two people in your childhood who, for who, making mistake was not a normal thing. I mean, it would be just one or two people who used to criticize you either or punish you whenever you made a mistake, but not everyone. But now over time, what happens is, because this one or two person was close to us, or we believed in onto them a lot, what happens is, growing up, we start projecting or thinking or assuming that everybody else is also like them, that everybody else is also not going to be okay with me making mistake, that everybody else is also going to judge me or criticize me exactly the same as that person did to me when I was a child. So what we are actually doing it, we are projecting that one person's behavior onto everybody else now that we have grown up as an adult. Okay. Now, moving on to the next topic, how is it impacting your life? So, I think if you have now that if you have this fear of making mistake, you must have an idea of, how it is impacting you. I think base overall what happens is, this fear of making mistakes makes you avoid any opportunity or situation where chances are where you think that you can make a mistake. So eventually what happens is, you're not learning new things in life, you're unable to you're unable to experiment with anything different in life. You're not being able, you do not put yourself out there in front of new people. The fear is so strong of being judged, criticized, and punished. Yes, and you, what you end up doing is you only feel comfortable with doing things in which you know that I can do that well. You somewhere you feel comfortable doing that, so end up being in your comfort zone, only doing the things that you have done before. So you're unable to get out of this comfort zone. So you end up staying at the same place when you have a very strong fear of making mistakes, because you're not able to do anything new in life because the fear that I will make a mistake is there. All right, so you end up limiting yourself in a way. Now, moving on to the next topic, why is it important to work over it? As I said, the decision is going to come from you. Sharing my personal views on it, why I thought that it was important for me to overcome this fear is that, so personally for me, growth mattered. So I, talking of my younger version, I did not like my reality. I knew that I wanted a different reality for myself, and growth is something that I have always, uh, you know, I was always fascinated by, and I always seeked growth in my life. And one thing I realized is that if I want growth in my life, if I want growth in my life, one thing that I have to do is, like, wanting growth means that I try and do new things in my life. And whenever I wanted to do this, I realized that to do new things or try new things in life, this fear was showing up. So what if I make a mistake? And that is when I realized that if I want growth in my life, or if I want to improve my self confidence or self esteem, this fear is something that I need to look into first. Because if that is standing in between, none of this can happen. Growth cannot happen, my reality cannot change. Okay. So basically, like for me personally, because growth mattered to me, I realized that whether I want to grow in health, career, or relationship aspect of my life, doing new things, trying new thing is something that I would have to do. And when I if I want to do that, this fear that what if I make a mistake have has to be gone, has to be dealt with before. Yes. I think I shared this already, but as a side note, I would like to share that even when it comes to your self confidence or self esteem, when you are working to improve it or develop your self confidence or self esteem, one thing you would notice is that after you've done the belief work, or after you've dealt with what are the beliefs that were standing between, you and your self confidence or self esteem, you will notice that eventually you will have to take some actions. You will have to take some actions in your physical reality always to build your new identity, wherein you are, you have much improved confidence and self-esteem. And when it comes to taking that action, if you have a very strong fear of making mistakes, you will not be able to take those actions. So that is also where, this tackling this fear comes into place, why it is important to deal with this fear before. All right. Coming to the last topic of this masterclass, which is how you can overcome your fear of making mistakes. Now, before we go to the how part, let me make it clear what do I mean when I say overcoming fear of making mistakes. So when I say overcoming fear of making mistakes, I do not mean that we are going to learn how we can practice more or prepare more in a physical reality to diminish the chances of making mistakes. No, that is something that we resort to when we are actually, when we are actually talking about taking actions, or when we have actually reached that stage of taking actions into a physical reality. And when we do that only when we have done the belief work. Right now, when I'm saying overcoming your fear of making mistakes, what we are doing is, what our goal is, that we become okay with making mistakes, that making mistakes is no more a bad word in a dictionary, making mistake is no more a life or death situation for us. So changing the definition of making mistakes, okay, removing that fear here. All right. Yes. Okay. So, which is, and when I say which, like, so when I talk of overcoming your fear of making mistake, what we are actually going to do is dig deeper into the fear. We are going to find out now why the fear is there, where it is coming from, and how we can overcome it. Now, see, if I tell you things like, oh, just do it, you can do it, it's okay, everybody has this fear, you can do it, just go and do it anyway, go and do the despite, go and do it despite the fear, you can do it. If I tell you such things, you will feel motivated for 2 days, and you will be able to take actions for these 2 days. But what will happen after 2 days is, you will eventually come back to the same position, same state, and same person. Rather, your fear would have been more intensified, because you did take action, you did face your fear, but it was like suppressing those fears. You were like avoiding that fear and telling that fear that you're not real, I do not believe in you, and you then took action. But when the fear is there, it is there because of a reason. So what I mean is, where if I give you random fixes and advices that go just do it, it's okay. In this case, we are neglecting your fear. We are not looking into it. We are not understanding what fear is trying to say, why it is there. So none of these are going to work for the longer period. And when we are doing this masterclass, our aim is to actually overcome this fear slowly, gradually, but permanently. We're not looking for quick fixes that, okay, for 1 month or 2 weeks, we are able to take actions. We're so motivated, feeling so high that we're able to do it. But the moment motivation or the source of motivation ends, I'm going back to the same person who has a strong fear around making mistakes. No, we are not talking about that. This is not for that purpose. So that is why, in this masterclass, in this section where we're going to discuss how we can overcome this fear, we are not going to talk about quick fixes or just 5 steps that you can do. No, it's not going to be about that. We are going to do the deep work. Okay. All right. Okay, so when we talk about overcoming this fear, the first part is going to be understanding fear, looking into fear, acknowledging it, understanding. Here, what we are going to do is we are going to find out the memories attached, your memories with fear of your memories with making mistakes, and exploring your relationship with making mistakes further. And this is going to be, take you back to your old times or any memory that you have with making mistake, or what exactly happened that you started fearing making mistakes so much. Because you need to understand that your fear is not there for no reason, it is there for a reason. Like something happened, that is why you have such a fearful relationship with making mistakes. So we will not overlook it, we will not neglect it, we will not tell it that you are there for no reason, I will step over you, not see you, and do things anyway. No, first we acknowledge it, understand it, look into it. Only then that fear will get resolved. Only then, if you take actions, that is which will actually bring results into you and lead you to a new identity where you do not fear of making mistakes anymore. Okay, so this is the belief work, all this, getting into the fear and finding out what exactly happened, or why is it there, the origin of fear, and all of that it is like doing the belief work. And once you have done this belief work, as I said, you will become healed enough to take actions into your reality. And once you because you're comfortable with taking actions, after the belief work, what will happen is eventually you will keep taking those small actions over the time, step by step. And over time, when you look back, you will notice that this identity that you had, where you were fearful of making mistakes, now you would become, from this to this, you would have an identity where you are no more fearful of making mistakes. But always remember that from 0 to 100, it will not be a quick thing, it will not be a flip that will happen or a switch that will happen. There will be journeys, there will be a lot of your versions or identity which will be in between, which will be like from the like this identity where you fear making mistakes, and this identity where this fear does not exist anymore. In between will be your identity. One identity will also exist where this fear will be there, but it will be healed enough, it will be small enough for you to take action despite it. So it will be a journey, not a flip thing, not a switch thing. Always remember that, because when you come from a place of unrealistic expectations, or thinking that just a matter of 1 week, 5 steps will be there, I'll follow it and this fear will go away. No, nothing of that sort. Do not come from that place, because we are talking about solving things permanently, not temporary solutions. Okay. And always remember that the aim of overcoming our fear is to being okay with making mistakes. Like, even if I fumble the next word, even if I fumble the next word, even if I go blank, it is not the biggest thing in the world. Like, I'm not going to die when this happens. Things are, it's not a life or death situation. And when making mistake does become a normal thing for you, what will happen is, your thought, that the thing that is happening right now with you, your focus always being on the negative outcome, your mind contemplating the negative outcomes, that what if I get it wrong, what if I make a mistake, that will stop happening because now you do not fear it anymore. What happens is when we put something on pedestal, like making mistake is something that we have put on pedestal here. Like when we have a mistake, making mistake is something that we have made put on pedestal, that this is something I can never do. And the moment we make something, do or die, that is when our focus exactly starts channeling towards that direction. That if I make a mistake, it's the end of the world. If I do it wrong, if I spell it wrong, if I pronounce it wrong, it's the end of the day. So that is when your mind will be focused towards it. The moment we put it down, take it down from the pedestal, and we make it like, making mistake is a normal thing. Happens with everybody. I can make a mistake. A person who is well trained into a craft can make a mistake. Is a normal thing. When you make it normal thing for you, your mind will stop going towards that direction, that what if I make a mistake, what if I spell this word wrong, what if I pronounce this word wrong. And the moment your mind stops focusing onto those things, onto negative outcomes, such things stop manifesting into your physical reality. And that is how, this fear will stop impacting your life, and you will be very much able to do anything you desire, anything that you want to do. It will be very easy for you to try new things in life, being able to put your opinion or yourself out there in front of new people, and just be yourself authentically. Okay, so yeah, so this was all that I had to tell you in this masterclass. This was all this masterclass was about. And coming to the next step, which is homework. So in this homework, which I just have 3 questions for you, which is actually nothing but doing that belief work, for your fear of making mistake. So write down these questions and reflect on it, think on it, and then write down your answers. So first question is now, why do you believe, no, sorry. The first question is, what do you believe will happen when you make a mistake? So, what do you believe will happen when you make a mistake? Second question is, who are you really, really scared of making mistakes to? Like when you make a mistake, who comes into your mind? Who are you really, really scared of making mistakes to? The third question, what is your first memory of making a mistake? What exactly happened? What is your first memory of making a mistake? What exactly happened? Take your time. Either write these questions, think on it, reflect on it, and write your answers. You can send it to me in chats if you want to. One more thing you can do is, if you want these questions in the written format, you can DM me PDF and I'll send you this PDF that I'm reading from right now. You can scroll to the last page, and that is where you will get these questions in the written format. Have these questions, write the answers, and when you write these answers, be honest with your feelings, because and take your time. Go back to your childhood versions, and or to go back to your childhood. Think of what happened exactly, what is the memories you have, that is stored into your body still. Write it down, share it with me if you want to. And if you want to work with me to overcome your fear of making mistakes, you can just DM me coaching and I will send you the link. You can book your first clarity call there. And yes, so do this homework, and I'll meet you in the next masterclass then. Bye bye.